Today's guest grew up fishing with a cane pole in Texas, discovered fly fishing at a Boy Scout camp, and years later made a decision in a tiki bar in Ecuador that changed everything. He came home and built Virginia's first dedicated fly fishing and hunting lodge. This is the Wet Fly Swing podcast, where I show you the best places to travel to for fly fishing, how to find the best resources and tools to prepare for that big trip, and what you can do to get back to the fish species we all love. In today's episode, Wesley Hodges takes us behind the oars on the New and James rivers. We get into why smallmouth bass are the most underrated species out there, how he built a year-round program that blends drift boats, dogs, topwater eats, and what it really takes to guide people from all walks of life, including brand new anglers and seasoned travelers. By the end of this episode, you'll learn how to think differently about trip planning, why you need to get super close to the bank and why 1 inch can make a difference in a 10-inch, why casting 3 inches off the bank is gold, and what makes Virginia feel like the New West. Here he is, Wesley Hodges from wesleyhodgesflyfishing.com. How you doing, Wes?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
We're doing great today. Yeah, always good to have a conversation about fishing. We're going to talk about your area. I think you have some unique things going, not only fishing, but hunting. We're going to talk about the lodge you have out there and kind of where you're coming from, which I think we have a decent chunk of people up in that part of the country, the northeast part. So we're going to get into all that today, gives people some smallmouth tips as well. But before we get there, take us back real quick on fly fishing. How'd you get into it? What's your first memory?
Well, I think that, the evolution of career that I have, it starts way before I ever touched a fly rod. Born and raised in Texas, Northeast Texas, on a big piece of property that my family had. And it was a endless, amount of adventure with rivers and ponds and hunting and fishing. I was always more fascinated by the fishing side of things with cane poles, graduating up to Zebco 33s, bait casters, spin rods. And then I was also heavy in the Boy Scouts, where I got my Eagle Scout. And the first time I touched a fly rod or even read about a trout was in Colorado at a Boy Scout camp. And I snuck out of my tent one morning and went down to this high mountain lake. And there was an old man fly fishing on this lake. And I was watching him, mesmerized completely by it. And I slowly creeped over there to him like a little 13-year-old creep. And he asked me if I wanted to try it, and I did. And then I had about $100 that my mother gave to me for the trip, the week-long trip, and I convinced the scoutmaster to take me into a local Walmart, and I bought a rod and some flies, and that was the start of my fly fishing. Now, oddly enough, I did not do it again until I was about 26 and out of the military, but it did stick with me. It stuck with me basically until I was 26 and went to school at Virginia Tech. That's why I started doing it again.
Gotcha. Wow, that's amazing. I always love, it's always cool to hear these stories because they're always different, but there's always a connection, like the planting the seed, the guy there, which I'm guessing you never saw that guy again.
Never again. No, never again. Some would say that he was an angel. And then, some would say that have been in the fishing game for as long as, they have, they might say that he was a demon, however you want to look at it. But it definitely, whatever happened, or me watching that guy do that and then catch these trout, it stuck with me. I remember laying, in the sand of Iraq and on a mission, and it was really hot. And I would reflect back on that morning and how cold that water was that we were standing in fishing for trout. And it stuck with me. It still sticks with me today. That first memory of seeing the fly cast go out and catch trout.
Yep. Wow, that's amazing. And what happened when you were 26? What triggered you to get back into it?
Man, I'd gotten out of the military. I'd done, spent quite a bit, just over 7 years in the 82nd Airborne Division. And it was a very intense time. The war was really going on. That was 2010 when I got out. So I was in 2002 to 2010 during the heat of the wars. And, man, I was laying in my house. I'd just gotten discharged from the military medically and trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And I just had this desire to go camping in the mountains of North Carolina. And from there, I went and bought a fly rod at an Orvis shop on the way, and then just went to Maggie Valley, North Carolina, set up my tent and just went fly fishing, and met another old man that had caught a bunch of fish and was kind of showing me how to swing nymphs in some of those mountain streams in Maggie Valley, North Carolina.
Wow. There you go. And so eventually you get into where you are now, where you have outfitter guide operation, you've got a lodge. Maybe talk about that. Let's talk about where you're located now and kind of the main rivers and species you're fishing for.
Yeah, man, it's getting to where I'm at now was one hell of a process and journey. It's comical. It was absolutely necessary that it all happened the way that it did, but there's a lot of humor involved in it. I was, going to college at Virginia Tech, and I wasn't really finished with my service to the country. I guess you say psychologically, I was not finished. I still wanted to keep doing it, and that got me involved in some interview processes with some agencies, and which ultimately led me going to Ecuador and living down there for a little while, studying Spanish, getting cultural acclimation, becoming fluent in language, I guess, and as well as the culture. And while I was down there, I was surfing, kind of living out of a tiki hut, if you will, on the beach in between my classes. And I just said, you know what? I don't want to work for the government anymore at all. I don't want to do it. And I made my mind up at a little tiki bar that I was going to go back home and start a fishing business on the New River, which I did. I came back home, started a fishing business in December of 2013, and went broke as hell within the first few months because no one starts a fishing business in the middle of winter.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and so that kind of led me down this journey of getting a corporate job for a little while, which worked out well for guiding. I was able to grow my business up, and then I got offered a job in Maine, Grand Lake Stream, Maine, to help manage a lodge. So I kind of put my guide business kind of on hold and moved to Maine and got to run this lodging operation at Weatherby Sporting Camps, which is a really historic lodge in the country. In doing that, I fell in love with the hospitality side of it all, meeting clients, showing them something different than just a casting class and landing fish. It's a bigger picture that we're ultimately trying to make here. And that is creating an experience that is unmatched. And when I left that season, I traveled around the country hunting, fishing, living out of a tent, and had this idea in my head that I was going to start the first true hunting and fishing lodge in the state of Virginia. And that's what I did. I came back from that time away from Maine, called the owner and told him that I wasn't coming back and I was going to start one in Virginia. And that was what I did. And yeah, man, it's awesome. I love it. We know the lodge is located on basically the headwaters of the James River where the Cowpasture and the Jackson merge. And, we run year round bird hunting and fishing. 365, we're taking people out somewhere to do something. We have a wild trout fishery just outside the bank, the lodge itself. Then we have the James, the Jackson, the Maury, the Cowpasture, the New River, and many other tributary rivers, in the area. This place is unique because there's so much water all merging into this major river system, the James River, that any given day, if one river's high and muddy, there's another one that's fishable, so we don't have to stop trips.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. So, and what's the closest town to where is your lodge located?
It's technically Eagle Rock, Virginia.
Yeah, Eagle Rock. Okay. And then, so basically, and people are coming in year round for whether fishing, hunting, or both. Are you guys doing a lot of trips where people come in and do both?
We do, yeah. We do multiple days. It might be 2 days of fishing, 2 days of hunting. I mean, we have people to stay for a week up to just single day floats. We kind of do it all. We've got a pretty big operation, got about 10 guides, 4 hunting guides as well, the whole staff, chef, everything at the lodge. And yeah, we can get, we try to keep it to about 10 people at a time that show up to the lodge, kind of keep it small and intimate so it's not, overwhelming, but we can get up to 15 people.
Yeah. Okay. And the species, or one of them you mentioned is smallmouth bass. That's one that a lot of people are coming for.
Yeah, man, we're making a huge push, across the board to inform people of smallmouth bass. All too often, I was just in a really deep conversation with the anglers at the lodge last night, and I was asking them why trout, like why is catch, and they said, I don't know, it's just what we see everywhere. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to change your mindset. You know, a lot of people think that fly fishing equals trout. Well, fly fishing is simply just a tool. The fly rod and reel and line are just a tool to catch any species you want to catch. And smallmouth is our game here in Virginia. I tell people often that Virginia, we have trout, but we are a smallmouth state. That's what we are. Unlike, Montana, they have some smallmouth, but they're a trout state. And so kind of the same concept here. We everywhere you go, you can catch smallmouth in the state of Virginia. And that makes it just a really unique, system itself. And on top of that, smallmouth are readily available and ready to eat roughly 9 months out of the year. You can almost push that to 12 months out of the year if you want to fish in the dead of winter. But our season starts March 1st and it runs all the way until basically almost Thanksgiving, to be honest with you. That we pushed it last year and we were catching lots of smallmouth all the way up until Thanksgiving.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. And March 1st. So now, as we're talking, we're kind of going into June's like right around the corner. This probably will go live later in July, maybe even August. Talk about that. Like, if it's, let's just take it to like August, early August. What's that look like for smallmouth during that time of year?
Well, so the seasons we have as far as smallmouth are concerned, we start calling out pre-spawn roughly March 1st. It's really dependent upon water temperature, but March 1st, we have officially put away our shotguns up until turkey season, and we start just going after smallmouth. It's not a numbers game in March. It is a quality game, is what it is. You're looking at potentially catching 4 to 5 fish a day that are going to be just world class, you know, 4 to 6 pound bass. That's what you're looking for each day. And catching, multiple of fish like that, of that size. Then you go into the spawning time frame. That usually runs somewhere on average late April until early May. You're looking at a 2 week window for the large amount of smallmouth to be spawning in that time frame. We always say the last full moon in April is the trigger for that spawn to actually occur. Um, so you got pre-spawn up until that last full moon in April. Then you go into your spawning phase. Then you go into post-spawn, and that usually is mid-May, all the way until about beginning of June. So I would say that we're kind of in post-spawn now. This year is a little bit, I would say, the forward of that, meaning I think they spawned earlier and they're more into their trying to get into their summer haunts right now. We had a warm spring. And then you get into that mid-June all the way until about early October, and you're in nothing but topwater season. And just throwing big frog patterns, Boogle Bugs, some homemade cork poppers, stuff like that all summer long. I mean, you're talking topwater from sunrise to sunset. That's what we're trying to do. It's interesting fishing these river systems. Everyone thinks that, you're casting at big logs in the middle of the river. And yeah, you do catch fish, but what we target is about 3 inches off the bank and about a foot and a half of water. These big fish.
Three inches off the bank.
That's right. Yep. It's, there's an old rule of thumb by a guy named Ellie Rhodes who used to get on the James. 1 inch from the bank equals 20-inch fish. 2 inches from the bank equals a 10-inch fish.
And why is that? Is that because what do the big fish know? Why do they want to be closer to the bank?
Well, there's a couple reasons. The topography of the river system is always a small ditch right along the bank. That can be from current kind of, causing kind of an undercut bank. It could be from logs and rocks getting pushed downriver off the bank, but it creates a little bitty depression for the most part, the entire length of the bank. And it's just a small ditch, and it only takes a couple inches in change in depth, couple inches, I say, and that can hold a big fish, a 20-inch fish. That doesn't take much for these fish to hold. But they're in there eating crayfish. They're eating cicadas falling off the trees, frogs, stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying we don't catch big fish in other places, but that's typically what we do. Also, psychologically, that gives a target for the clients to cast at, which kind of keeps their head in the game the whole day. Hit that rock just off the bank, hit that log, hit that little depression along the bank. It's much easier to keep clients entertained when they have a bullseye they're trying to cast at than just have them throw it aimlessly out in the middle of the river.
So are you guys floating this? Are you guys using rafts or drift boats? What's that look like?
That's correct. Yeah, we're using rafts and drift boats. We're recently, gotten away from our rafts and using this one particular model of drift boat that is kind of our go-to, go anywhere kind of drift boat. I think they've been on your podcast, Blue Ridge Boat Works.
Oh yeah, Blue Ridge.
Yep. Yeah, those boats, they're incredible what we do.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're kind of getting away from our rafts altogether and using just the drift boats.
Yeah, and his Blue Ridge drift boats, are they, what type of boat is that? Is that a wood boat?
No, don't get my think it's materials nomenclature wrong here, but it's like a UHMW, really high dense, kind of like a boulder boat works, but made specifically for this kind of East Coast fishing we do. They don't catch on rocks or logs; they just slide right off of them, which makes it really nice for us. And when we're fishing in these areas, we're only fishing in a foot and a half, 2 foot of water sometimes, and these big fish get really spooky by a boat that rocks and makes a lot of noise. We call it a boat that's pushy, if you will. And having the right boat does help us out because when we're in those really shallow gravel flats targeting these fish, we got to be completely still and noise free. Otherwise, we'll spook these fish out.
Yeah, it was episode 583 with Brownie Lyle's drift boat. Yeah, but he talked about. Yeah, it's a really unique boat. We'll put a link in the show notes to that because it definitely has a unique design, and like you said, with the material is also pretty unique. So, but that's quiet. So that boat is pretty quiet in the water.
Oh, it's very quiet. Yeah. I mean, a fiberglass boat, you hit a rock and it makes a loud, hollow thud. These boats, it absorbs it super well. You don't really get that crash, if you will. It's more of a slide on top of a rock and then slides off of it, which is really unique.
Yeah, I think I joked with Brownie on that episode. I think I was like, this thing looks, it's like the Tesla of, right? I mean, it's so unique and it kind of has those cuts, almost like actually now that I think about the new, the Tesla truck or whatever. But is your boat, does he have one standard or what would your boat, how would we see a picture of your boat out there?
Well, so you'll see, we can get you a picture of it. I personally use what is a different boat called a high country drift boat, which are custom made in Banner Elk. That's the one that I use. I've been using those for a while, but all my guides, I supply their boats for them, and we just the Blue Ridge boats, just because it's such a workhorse boat. And the best part, in my opinion, is if anything goes wrong with it, Brownie and his team will drive up on site and fix it on site and then leave, which is you don't see that kind of service in the industry.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
service. That's right. And where are they located? Where's their?
Brownie is out of like down by Bristol, Tennessee.
Oh, okay, Tennessee. Yeah.
Yeah, on the Watauga River. So he has his operation. Yeah, he has his operation down there.
Pescador on the Fly offers a full range of fly fishing gear for any angler at any budget, with premium rods delivered directly to you. The El Rey G6 is the most packable, high-performance fly rod on the market, performing like a 4-piece rod but with unmatched portability in 6 pieces. And you can get 10% off your next order right now if you use the code WETFLYSWING at pescadoronthefly.com. Never fly without your G6. Discover the El Rey series and more at pescadoronthefly.com. Patagonia just launched the next evolution in waders, and they're built for anglers just like you. The Swift Current line includes ultralight, packable options for the hiking, crew, and expedition-ready waders if you're hard on your gear like me. They're designed for comfort, built from recycled materials, and backed by Patagonia's ironclad warranty. You can check them out right now at wetflyswing.com/swiftcurrent. That's wetflyswing.com/SWIFTCURRENT. Swift Current waders. Check them out now. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so you have the drift boats. As you're floating down, maybe describe that a little bit. We've got these different seasons. You talked about, the summer. Let's just go to the top water because I think that's something people are interested in. What does that look like when you're floating down the river? Give us a kind of a day in the life. Or you guys, describe that when you're on the water.
Yeah, so the days, they vary. Some days it's going to be an early morning float. We've done sunrise floats to about noon when it's really hot. Get guys off the water, they come back to the lodge and they hang out. We've done noon to dark floats. Typically speaking, we see the evening bite is best, typically speaking. That 6 o'clock till about 8:30 bite window is usually really, really, incredible. We start seeing significant drops in water levels, usually late June. Right now, we've had a lot of rain recently, so the water's up, which has made really epic frog bites, big chugging motions, disturbing a lot of water. But in the summertime, we're talking low water conditions. A little reference point, the James River is probably about 2,000 CFS for a good summertime topwater flows like we're looking for. We're talking 700 to 600 flows. The New River, which is a massive river system, it's pushing 3 to 4,000 right now, maybe a little bit more. Still fishable for us, even on topwater and streamers. we're looking for around 1,000 to 1,500 in the middle of summer is what we're wanting, just because it opens up the river bottom so much so that we can target certain things, logs, rock piles, depressions in the river bottom, ledges, stuff like that. So anyways, our floats typically run 8 hours long, and it is a lot of casting, a lot of floating lines. I mean, we're getting really technical with them too. 10 to 13-foot leaders. We're using floating lines that we cut down and kind of custom taper ourselves by adding different monofilaments to them just to minimize the amount of splash and spook, that we might cause with these fish. There's a couple fly lines out of there, and I don't know the names of them yet. Tight Lines Fly Company, they use them a lot. They have a clear shooting head on them so that, the shadows won't spook the fish as they float over top of them. Yeah, all that comes into effect. I mean, we're getting really technical with these big smallmouth in the middle of summer, really technical. And then if the topwater bite is not working, we custom tie these specific crayfish patterns that we use that we almost dead drift down super shallow banks. Very lightweight, very small in size, but these crayfish that we have they're everywhere in our river systems, everywhere. You can't get in the water without spooking out 30, 40 crayfish.
So if they're on the poppers, you guys are going strong on that. If not, you're getting down. And are you using sinking lines to get those down?
No, sir. Floating lines.
Yeah, just all floating. Okay. What is that? Let's take it to the top water. Let's say it is a good, it's that summertime floating down. They're on the top water. Are you still casting towards that, within as close as you can get to the bank, typically?
Yeah, we are. And it's kind of a team effort. And it's kind of hard to really, show this without being on video. The guy in the front of the boat, so there's no angler that casts or lands his fly parallel to the boat. Every cast is going downstream of the boat because we want our flies to reach those fish before the boat does, if that makes any sense. So a lot of downstream casting, very, 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 very minuscule movement. Just the dimple of that fly hitting the water alone will alert fish within 10, 15 feet. And then we just dead drift them. If we do move them, it is a very faint little wiggle just to make the legs move a little bit, and then we dead drift. Oftentimes we're dead drifting 15, 20 seconds, and then we pick up and drop it again towards a rock, towards a log. A lot of times we can see these fish move, see the big shadow come up underneath the poppers and stare at them. Incredibly exciting. We have a lot of clients that blow it. I mean, we as guides blow it too because we're watching the fish and he's hovering underneath your popper, staring at it. And if you tickle it too much, they go away. It's really intense, but really enjoyable too. Watching a 20 to 22-inch smallmouth bass just basically have his lips against your popper and you can't move it.
So if you've got this fly drifting down, trying to not put any movement on it, and I'm assuming the water's pretty slow. Are you guys fishing kind of like pool type slow glides, or what's the water current look like?
That's right. Yeah, a lot of times what we're looking for is we have a couple rods rigged up with different things. We get into a riffle, we're going to throw crayfish and we're going to strip some small streamers, bait fish patterns through riffles. Once we get into that tail out, that long tail out into a long pool, we're picking the poppers up and we're targeting fish on poppers. We typically are not throwing poppers in fast moving water. It's typically what we call pond water or frog water, the long tail outs in between the next rapid.
Right, the long tail outs. Gotcha. Okay, so as that fly is drifting down the popper, maybe first talk about what are some of the fly patterns that you guys are using. Are these your own custom creations, or what does that look like?
On the topwater side, and we're Boogle Bug guys. We throw Boogle Bugs left and right. I just dropped $5,000 on Boogle Bugs.
What's the history on the Boogle Bug?
Well, those are made by Boogle Bug and Sell. I think they're out of Alabama. They're really hard to come by. They are just a cork popping bug. They make a couple different variations of them. They have a lipped face, if you will, standard popping bug kind of face. Then they make a slider similar to a Sneaky Pete, but it's something about those bugs. They're cork, and then they dip them in like an epoxy paint, and they just slap the water really well. A nice little slap is what we're looking for. They're not big at all. I think the size we use typically is size 4. We use yellow, white, and we use baby blue or electric blue is their actual color in the popping bugs and the sliders. Some days you give the chugging action, you get a little movement, it makes a little bubble. The fish don't like it, so you throw a slider that kind of dives under the water, really, I guess you'd say, delicately, and that's what the fish want, and they eat it. It depends on how spooky they are.
So sometimes they'll want it just under the surface. Sometimes they'll want it on top.
That's right.
Wait, how do you know? Are you just experiment? Do you start with just floating it dead drift, no movement, or what's your process look like to find out what they're taking that day, how they're taking it?
Well, it depends. A lot of times it's what we had tied on the last trip. So we start with that. And then the guides, we're standing on top of coolers. We're watching and seeing, spotting for fish. And then we're watching the bug. And when we see a fish swim underneath it and like swirl at it, but not take it after a chug, we know that's too much for them. So we change the fly out. Then you can go back to that same fish that you saw come out, drop it in there and give it a little tickle, and it kind of dives under the water. And that's what they take. They like that non-chugging action. We use other bugs when they're really technical and getting really spooky. It's variations of the Mr. Wiggle Legs, which is a tot line fly from up in Wisconsin. That's really good in really low water. Kind of mimics a damselfly on the surface. Really no splash, no movement at all. Just little tickles, and those legs really kind of get moving quite a bit. If we do get high water, shots of high water in the summertime, we'll go right back to our big frog patterns, chugging those things.
Gotcha. Yeah. So frogs and the boogle bug, and then what was the other one? The wiggle.
Mr. Wiggle Legs.
Yeah, Mr. Wiggle Legs. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll try to get some pictures and videos if we can in the show notes here. So, and these flies are imitating, and on the surface, what are they imitating typically? A bunch of different things or one thing?
So flies, some of the things that we kind of trying to emulate. Frogs is another thing we try to imitate quite a bit. Bait fish, of some sort. We do throw some non-legged slider patterns that have their small little diving minnow head with marabou. We've even gone as far as doing stuff called a popper dropper rig. Throw a big popping bug with like a weightless crayfish underneath it, and you dead drift that down banks or in certain runs like ledges. Give the popping bug a little chug. It'll draw the fish out, and they eat the crayfish that's drifting below it.
Oh, right. Gotcha. And the crayfish pattern, what are you working there? What's a typical pattern?
Man, it could be on anything. It can be a weightless woolly booger. It could be like just some of the custom stuff we tie up that have like rubber eyes on them. If you can imagine a rubber barbell eye, just enough to get it below the surface. Then it's just marabou and gulls and stuff like that. That's the beautiful thing about smallmouth is they really don't give a shit. It doesn't have to look great to them. They would much rather eat a crayfish than a size 22 midge. And so that's the thing is if it's in the water and it looks edible, they're going to eat it.
Wow, what's the craziest thing you think one of these bass has eaten? You've seen or heard
A
of?
potato chip.
Oh, really? A potato chip?
Yeah. During lunch, we drop potato chips in the water and you'll see them come up and just smack them.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
potato chips. It's funny. We just did an episode a while back here of carp fishing in the middle of like Phoenix, Arizona, and they were talking about how Cheetos. They eat lots of Cheetos, right? They're eating all sorts of stuff. But it's interesting because these fish are, I mean, trout are opportunistic too, but they're not going to eat really. But at least I've heard, haven't heard that as much. But the bass and some of these species are really just whatever. What do you think? I mean, do you think they're eating this stuff and then spitting it out? What's that look like as far as or when they hit it, are they on?
No, I mean, that's why I love smallmouth is that man, to be honest with you, they really just don't care. They're just so aggressive that once they commit, they're pretty much going to eat it no matter what it is. And that's what I love about them is their aggression of it. They don't. And even if that fish does want to eat it and spit it back out, we're going to have that hook set on them before he can do that. And they're very forgiving fish. You can have a horrible cast. That's okay. These fish don't care. If they see it and they're going to eat it, they're going to go after it. Outside of some of the stuff I'm talking about, them being technical of splashing water, man, they're a very, very forgiving fish for any angler. I mean, we get many of young kids, 8 to 12, 13 years old, that have never held a fly rod before, that are slamming these smallmouth bass, and they can only cast 30 feet by the end of the day. They just don't care, and that's what we love about them.
When you're on the water floating down, talk about that getting set up. It sounds like you guys are you drifting? Do you ever anchor up, or are you always drifting?
Yeah, we will anchor up some. It's not a common practice of ours. We're typically just drifting right along, floating, depends on water levels, high water, 12 miles, low water, 4 miles. Just depends on what's going on. It's not uncommon to not see another guide boat all day long. Very isolated where we're at. It's rare that you see a home on the riverbanks. Oftentimes you think that you're in a complete wilderness area. We are very agriculture based in most of the rivers that we got on. Huge tracts of land owned by the farmers, and you can't develop farmland, which yields, this allure of being in the middle of nowhere. Which means you kind of are. I mean, Western Virginia is very remote. But yeah, man, and you float. We don't wade fish a lot. I mean, at lunchtime, guys will get out and wade fish and riffles and stuff, but it's just a lot of ground to cover. There's very little public access except for the boat launches. So once you're out there, you're just floating the whole day.
You are. Wow. And this is awesome. And it sounds like, yeah, so there's not a ton, of, at least in that area of guy. I mean, we were down there a couple years ago. We were up actually in Harrisonburg doing the Mossy Creek, and that was pretty awesome, right? That was for trout. But you're not, I mean, you're a little distance. How far are you from all that area up there? And
about an hour and a half further south. I know the Trail Brothers fairly well, and that whole area, especially along the Shenandoah, it is developed. That's just the geographic location of it. Where we're at, it's not at all, man. I mean, it's crazy. We got boat ramps. We're dragging boats with ropes and cables up riverbanks to get them out of there. It's a wilderness area. We're about, as a crow flies, maybe 15 miles from the West Virginia border. We are surrounded by hundreds of thousands of acres of national forest.
what national forest is that?
Jefferson and George Washington.
And George Washington, right?
Yep. And then to our west, we have the Monongahela in West Virginia. Of course, we have the Greenbrier State Forest, too, just over the border. We're just surrounded by public land that just yields almost no development whatsoever.
Amazing. I think it's really cool because, I've been out east, a few times now, and it's cool because, the West is kind of known as the mountain and, the mountains and all that stuff. But really, once you get out in the East, you realize, like you're talking about, you got these little areas, well, not even little, they're huge, of, forest, and it's remote, right? And you got these rivers and this picture you're painting. It's pretty cool. Do you feel like, I mean, it's a little bit, under the radar a little bit? I mean, are people coming out now more from the West? Are you seeing people from all over the country coming out with you guys?
Yeah, all over the country. We get a lot of people from overseas, France, Spain, Italy, Russia, Yugoslavia. We're trying to get a guy that wants to come in from Pakistan to fish and hunt with us. Just because it is, our reach is pretty strong as far as getting the name out there. We have it trademarked that Virginia is the new West. Anything that someone would want to fly out west for, they don't have to. It's right here in Virginia. Wild river systems, big rapids.
Oh,
We
really?
have whitewater.
Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah. We have great whitewater in certain areas. Great whitewater kayaking, world-class kayaking on Johns Creek when the water's up. I mean, when the water levels are up, I guarantee you today, because all the rain we got, there is going to be a waiting line for kayakers to get into some of these areas to kayak.
These are whitewater kayakers?
Oh, big time, big time. And you look at like the New River, for example, they're trying to put in a new whitewater park.
Sure.
Roanoke, Virginia is a great place to fly into. Matter of fact, we're hosting the man Ben Sitting, the huge fly fisherman. He's bringing a big group of people from out west here to stay for a week and fish with us. And he was scouting out Roanoke, and he was like, "Dude, this is incredible here. How easy it is to get into this airport and then be in the middle of nowhere in 40 minutes." Yeah, so it's a really unique location. I'm super fortunate to have found this place. And the best part is the local governing bodies, they want to keep it that way. They are very strong in protecting this area, keeping it wild.
Some places are just different. You feel it the second you step into the water. Mountain Waters Resort sits on the legendary Portland Creek, a place where Atlantic salmon run strong and where fly fishing history was written. Lee Wolf himself fished these waters, and now you get to experience the same world-class fishing in a setting that feels untouched by time. Whether you're swinging flies for fresh chrome or kicking back in a cozy riverside cabin, this is the kind of trip you'll be talking about for years and years to come. And guess what? I'll be there this year as well. But here's the deal. Prime time season fills up fast, so don't wait. Check in now and join me on this historic river this year. You can head over to wetflyswing.com/mountainwaters right now. That's Mountain Waters Resort. You can go to wetflyswing.com/mountainwaters right now and save your spot for this epic adventure. Not many companies are building their own gear these days, but Intrepid Camp Gear is changing that. Based in Boulder, Colorado, Intrepid designs and manufactures some of the most rugged, technically advanced rooftop tents and aluminum cargo cases on the market. Their gear is built in-house with patented designs that stand up to the elements and the miles. Whether you're chasing elk deep in the backcountry, hunting for fresh powder, or heading out for your next fly fishing trip, Intrepid gives you the confidence to go further. Their rooftop tents keep you warm, dry, and off the ground. Their cargo cases, bomb-proof, weather-tight, and ready for just about anything. So stop settling for flimsy, mass-produced gear. Level up with the gear that's built to last and engineered for real adventure. Go to wetflyswing.com/intrepid right now to get started. That's INTREPID. Intrepid Camp Gear. Get started right now.
Nice. And then you also have the hunting piece, right? So, which is a whole nother thing that kind of separates you. You know, you have this hunting. Talk about that a little bit. What is this mostly bird hunting? What are people coming in there
That's
for?
correct. Yeah, we do. We're not big game hunters. I mean, we do guide people that want to do that, but it's not something that we push publicly. The big thing we do is our wild bird hunts, the grouse and woodcock hunting we have, especially the grouse. You know, a lot of people are under the impression that the grouse are non-existent in the Appalachian Mountains anymore. And we will argue strongly against that. Well, to be honest with you, we want people to think that because they just don't come here and it's more birds for us. But we have been honing in on these birds for over 10 years now, and there is plenty of rough grouse in the area. The only thing that's hard to find is people's physical abilities to go get them, their desire to work that hard to find them, because it's a lot of work. I mean, it is comparable to an elk hunt. You're up and down mountains, you know, crossing over creeks and do big canyon style stuff to find these birds. But they're there, and they're really strong population of them here too. And we know how good the seasons are going to be because during the spring season, when we're turkey hunting with clients, we hear the grouse drumming all spring long. So we know the population is growing even more. But they're in areas that people would not often look because they typically are on maps looking for forest cuts, and the birds don't need that. They have different areas they hold in, so people often don't look there, which is kind of good for us because we scoured these mountains over 10 years finding these birds, and we've honed in on where the birds actually are living at.
You said you have some guys out there this week. Is this time of year kind of the late May, June good for hunting?
The seasons are technically over. Turkey season ended for us 2 weeks ago. Our bird hunting seasons, they start in October and go all the way until March 1st. That's our upland, woodcock and grouse. And then our turkey season starts the second week, usually in April, and then goes all the way until the third week in May. And then it's over as well. Our turkey hunts are a really hot thing. We sell out every year, usually by Thanksgiving, for turkey season because the way in which we do it. And I'm not going to say that's proprietary, but in some ways it is. But it is a true cast and blast. I'll put it to you that way.
It seems like that would be the cool thing. It sounds like the hunting, might be a little more work maybe than the bass fishing, but it would be cool to do both. Are people coming there for, like a day, a couple days, week? There's a diversity of kind of how long people are staying there.
Yeah. So our hunts are always a 2-night, 2-day minimum stay. Those are all inclusive from the alcohol, food, lodging, hunting, fishing, whatever it is. It's built into a package, and it's a 2-night, 2-day minimum. We do during woodcock season, because those birds are migratory, we do allow people to come in and do one single day hunts for those, but they typically will batch a couple days together. Now, our woodcock hunts, those actually take place east of the mountains. Charlottesville, Virginia area, east towards Richmond. That's the major migration route for those birds. And we pack up the airstream and head that way with the guides, and we camp out along certain areas where the birds are coming through. That's where we hunt them at for, a week at a two at a time.
I see. So you had basically east towards Richmond.
That's correct. Yeah. Just set up a little base camp and guys meet us and hunt with us while we're out there. Yeah. So it's fun. We have guys that stay for, like I said, a week up, and we do people that just come out for the day to fish with their kids or friends, whatever it is. Do
you ever get any people that are there that, with the hunting, that are like brand new to it, they heard about it, and they're like, oh, I'll give this a shot. Do you take on like new hunters? How would that work?
We do. Yeah, that's a good question. We do. We are not known for being, let me rephrase that. We are known for being purist when it comes to wild game. We only go after wild fish and wild birds is what we go after. We do not, we will take people to stock trout water. We will take people to preserves, but that is pretty much on a educational basis. If we're teaching someone, the sport of fly fishing and or bird hunting, and they want to learn more about it, we take them out there We teach them the casting techniques. We complete the full circle experience by getting them on fish or having dogs go on point and point some birds so they can see what it looks like, fulfill that trip, if that makes any sense. And then we take that, not fish, but the birds, we take back to the lodge and we prepare them and show them how to clean them and cook them and stuff like that. Just making good stewards, making good people that are fully educated on what this process looks like so that maybe they don't like it and they don't want to invest that time and money into it anymore, but at least they know what the full process looks like. Out of respect for the birds, the fish, the sport itself, just that's one of the ways in which we practice conservation is that through education.
I feel like for those people who haven't hunted, birds, just take it to that. It seems like there's a good overlap there. I know we've talked a little bit about bird hunting on here. John Shuey is a big author out west, and he's, talked about, he's a big bird hunter, and there's a lot of overlap, right? But it's getting into it, right? So you don't have a gun, you don't have anything. It feels like you might be that place that you could, kind of get people that first touch of what does hunting feel like. Do you find like it's a small percentage of people that are kind of new to it, or do you get a good mix?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, all the time. And we make it easy for people too, because that was one of the big hiccups I saw in the sport is to get into this, you're dropping thousands of dollars.
Yeah, you need a gun. First of all, you need a shot. Although there are shotguns out there, pretty good ones that don't cost. They're probably less than a fly rod.
That's right. Yeah, and so my concept, kind of my, I guess, vision of this was anybody new that wants to come in, don't buy a damn thing yet. Just come to us. We'll show you what works, what is good. We'll show you why it's good and why we use certain things. That way that when you buy it once and you're done. You don't have to go out and buy all this different stuff, buy different shotguns for different purposes. We'll show you how to buy or pick the right gun, how to fit it for yourself. Same thing for the fly rods. If you're looking to buy, a fly rod, but you don't know what species, we're going to help you navigate that as well. We have people that come here that want to try out drift boats before they go buy one. So we take them and guide them down the river, let them feel the boat, see what the boat's about, and then we help them purchase that next boat for themselves.
It sounds pretty awesome. I think as we're, like you said, Ben, the huge fly fisherman, I think that's like I'm guessing bringing out some fly anglers. But I feel like a trip would be cool where you're bringing out a group and, yeah, you're doing a little bit of everything, right? You got the drift boats, you got the hunting and all that. What would be if we were talking to you right now saying, okay, we've got a small group that want to come out and fish, maybe do a little hunting. What would be the time you think would be a good time to do that for some folks? If you had a mixture of really experienced and non-experienced.
Yeah, sorry, and you got the lawnmower going in the background now. So that's a good question. And, if hunting is more of your pursuit, I would say for the group, you need to be looking in that early to mid-fall time frame.
Yeah, so like October.
That's right. The fishing will still be good. It's not a peak season fishing, but it'll still be good. But you can overlap some hunting with a day or two of fishing as well. Now, if fishing is your thing and you want to dabble with some hunting, look to the spring. The preserve that we take people to is open all the way until about mid to late April. So we can still run some hunts, run a couple of days of fishing trip, really hot fishing time, and then overlap a day of bird hunting in there too, just to break it up.
So that would be the time. So if you had that, and then people, if they could hunt maybe for a day, or maybe they just stick fishing. But the fishing is really good in the spring because that spawn period where they're just super. Talk about that. Why is that? And it's also not a lot of topwater, or are you getting some topwater then?
You can, yeah. My guides make fun of me because I throw topwater year round. We will catch smallmouth year round on topwater. Just depends if you're willing to only get one bite all day in the middle of winter. But we were catching fish as early as March the 2nd this year on topwater. We had a couple of really warm days in a row, and I told the client, hey, if you catch another fish on a streamer, we're going to switch over to topwater and give that a go. And he did. And then we caught fish on topwater throughout the day as well. So the reason, to answer your question on why that is, why is spring so good, it's because the fish, their metabolism is speeding up, okay? They've got to get ready for this spawn, and they've got to feed up and gain some weight. There's bug life going crazy as the water temperature is warm. Minnows are starting to come out. Crayfish are coming out of rocks. Everything is starting to move, and it just triggers this response for fish to start feeding heavily as they prepare for the spawn. And the females, the big females, the ones we're really going after, when they go into their nest to start laying eggs, they're not leaving there until the eggs are laid, okay? And so they're not there to eat anymore. They're simply there to lay eggs and then, produce babies, basically, is what they're there for. So you're trying to catch these big fish in that window when they're really aggressively feeding because they're not going to be feeding when they go into spawn.
So yeah, we were talking about, this trip. Like if we were to put one together, I feel like the spring would be a good time because you've got the good water, you've got the good spawn action, and like you're saying, maybe describe that again. So the key with the spawn is so key because fish are getting just fired up for that time of year, and they're just aggressive on, if it's not top water, it's something else.
That's right. Yeah, that springtime bite again. Those fish they're filling their feed bag for the spawn, which will happen, anywhere from a month to a few weeks after that kind of peak pre-spawn time frame. Again, that's triggered by water temperatures coming up, getting into the 50-degree mark. Bait fish are moving, crayfish are out, darting around. Bugs are starting to hatch off the water. This triggers this whole ecosystem to start moving. There's a lot of streamer fishing. Some days we get really good topwater fishing on frog patterns, sinking lines, intermediate lines, but big moving flies is what we're going or fishing with. But now also keep in mind then our wild trout fishery is on fire at that time too. So a lot of guys will come in and they'll book a day or two of smallmouth, a day or two of trout. And the Jackson River is a really unique river system. Again, those are all wild fish. They don't stock it whatsoever.
Are these wild? Are these browns, or what is the species?
Yep, browns and rainbows. Yeah. They do not supplemental stock that river system whatsoever. They left them to the wolves and then we have them and they're big brown trout. I would say that on a day on the water, you should expect, on the right conditions to get multiple fish over between 18 to 22 inches. It is truly a quality fishery than a quantity.
And that's in the spring, so you could do some brown trout and bass fishing during the same time.
That's correct. And also we got about a month window where it's really good. It can be really good dry fly fishing. Really good.
I think a lot of people out there, we're trying to, paint the picture of this operation you have, which is obviously you've got it dialed in because you're guiding there with the lodge and everything too. But sometimes people are out there thinking, where to go, right? Let's just take it to that. If somebody was out there and they're thinking this is interesting, they're in this area, what sort of advice would you give that person if they don't know where to start and maybe they couldn't get out right away with you on a trip? What would be your recommendation?
Well, so our smallmouth waters, if you have your own personal boat, you can fish anywhere you want to. Launch at a public launch and float down the next one. The trout water is a little bit different because we do suffer from the King's Grant issues. Now, you can wade fish at any of the public boat launches on the Jackson River. In that area, and all those areas that you can wade fish from are actually really good fishing, especially if you're a nymph fisherman. They're really good. So, it's just technical because there's certain sections of the Jackson River that you can't access by boat.
Oh, you can't.
Or foot.
Oh, right. There's
Yeah.
certain places where there's no boat ramp, so you just can't get there.
That's right. There's places that you can't even fish in. You can float through it, but you can't fish it.
Oh, really? So you can't even, you can't anchor up, but you can't even fish at all, even if you're not anchored. Okay. That's interesting. That's one law we haven't heard of. It sounds like most places are, you could at least float through. Maybe you can't anchor, but there's places where you can't even fish while you're floating through.
Yep. That's part of the issue with the Kings Grant area that we have. And so, when people ask me, they call in and say, hey, man, we want to fish on our own. Where's a good place to go? The question is, do you have a boat or not? Well, if they have a boat, then we typically point them to smallmouth water because once you're on the water, you can fish wherever you want to. On the trout water, it gets complex. They're going to wade fish. That's fine. We point out the public boat access points and they can wade fish right there. But if they're going to float the Jackson River, it's my recommendation to everybody to get a guide for a day and just have the guide fish you and show you where you can and can't float at. Because the landowners, they 100% will prosecute you.
Right. Yep, gotcha. And that is a smart move. And yeah, you do have some tools out there, trout routes, Onyx, and things like that have landowner. But still, it sounds like there's some questions you probably want to get that more dialed in. And a guide trip is an easy way, a good way to do it for maybe even if it's a day, just to show you where you're at and then fish the rest of the week.
That's right. A $500 guide trip is way more economical than a $10,000 fine for getting caught up in a trespassing, issue.
We've had actually, I think we've had at least one episode on here where we talked about some of that, just the law. And it is very confusing because it's by state, state by state. I'm sure even province by province, wherever you're at, the law is different, so it's confusing.
Yeah, if it's something you guys are interested in talking more about, there's a man by the name of Bo Beasley.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we've had Bo on, and I was trying to remember his name, but yeah, Bo Beasley was on the podcast. He did. He's been on multiple times, in fact, and we've done a few episodes. So he did talk about that, and so that's great.
Yeah, he wrote a book about it. I mean, not a book about that specifically, but warning anglers, hey, this is what you might run into. But he went down a pretty dark rabbit hole trying to get to the bottom of that. And I don't know if you want to go over it, but I heard something recent that kind of blew me away and made sense on why that all happened actually.
Oh, now what happened exactly?
So this is just a rumor from different landowners that I've talked to, and I know some of the guys that own the land. I mean, I've guided them, and they explained that it wasn't a problem until local government started taxing them for owning the river bottom, and because they were taxed more on the river bottom, they said, "Fine, well, if you're taxing me on it, then that is my property."
So before no taxes, they're like, well, yeah, I own it, but I'm not going to worry about it. So go ahead and fish it. You can wade there. But as soon as the government said no, we're going to start taking more money. Now it's like, okay, well, we can lock it down then and not allow people to. Yeah.
That's right. That is, I'm sure it's deeper than that, but that is the most recent thing that I've heard. And that, I mean, to be honest with you, that kind of makes sense to me from that perspective. If navigable water is going to be deemed taxable to the landowner, then it's no different than owning the extension of your yard at that point. Who knows who's right, who's wrong, who's different, but that is the case of the Jackson.
Yeah, that's the Jackson, right? You have some of that going on, and I did find it here. It was river access laws with Bo Beasley. That was back in August of 2024. So we'll have a link to that one. People can take a look, and that was a good one. So, well, let's Wes, let's take it out of here with our gear talk. I mentioned that before, our gear talk segment. Today, this is presented by Patagonia Swift Current Waders, which is Patagonia obviously has some great stuff. You mentioned Orvis, who's also a great company. Patagonia obviously is leading in a lot of the conservation stuff and everything they're doing. I was out this week with the Swift Current Waders, and yeah, they've got a couple features on there, I think, that are a little bit different than some of the other waders. But let's start there with our gear talk segment. For you, first shout out to Patagonia. We all love them and what they're doing out there. But what's your go-to gear if you're talking summertime? Is there some piece of gear that is like you've got to have when it's in the heat of the summer out there?
Yeah, man. Number one, my Chaco flip-flops.
Oh, Chacos. Me too. I'm a Chaco. Yep.
I love them, dude. They're great water shoes. We wear the hell out of those. As far as clothing is concerned, man, I really believe that the Patagonia with their natural fiber sun shirts are incredible. I love those hoodies they make. They're incredibly breathable, and I love them. As far as, let's talk about terminal gear, we love the Orvis boat bag that they made this year. It has the tippet spool. That's a great bag. That carries everything for us. We love those. Rods themselves, I mean, we love rolling the new Helios rod. They're great rods for beginners to use. You can feel the rod load. It really helps with the cast.
Are they more of like a medium action rod?
A little bit stiffer than that, but they're a little bit stiffer. But the way that they design the tip of it, you can feel that tip flex, which is so it's stiffer through the butt section up to the middle of the rod. Probably the last third of that rod, you can feel it flex really well. And then when you hit that sweet spot as a new, I guess you say client or new angler with the fly rod, you can really feel that rod load and know when to go make your forward cast. So that really helps a lot too. Yeah, and that's stuff that we carry all the time, as far as equipment's concerned. I'm trying to think of anything else that might be like really important.
Those are all huge. I mean, I think you mentioned the Chacos, the sun shirt, the Orvis bag, the rods. I mean, that's definitely a good. We'll get some links out to some of that gear too in the show notes. We talked casting a little bit. It sounds like that's an important piece to have there because maybe an inch might make the difference between a giant fish versus a smaller fish. What's your tip with somebody with casting? We have kind of always thinking about that. What are you telling somebody? Do you have a tip that would help somebody get more accurate or better at casting?
The number one thing that I would say is typically probably the most important thing involves timing of the tempo. Slow your cast down, number one. Your thumb, the thumb and how it lays along the spine of the rod and what your thumb does in the cast is one of the most important aspects of it. Your thumb on your back cast, you should be trying to create a thumbs up position with your rod. You should be making a thumbs up. And then when you start your forward cast, your thumb actually should be pushing that rod forward the whole time.
Yeah, your thumb. So you should be actually putting pressure, not just your arm motion, but your thumb should be really be.
That's right. That thumb, we always tell people to lead with your thumb on the back cast, lead with the thumb, and then lead with the thumb on the forward cast. Push that thumb forward, which is going to eliminate that whole wrist flexing action, if you will.
Oh, so that's going to stop you from like breaking your wrist?
That's correct. Yeah. Now this is the strange thing. People always hear, "Don't break your wrist. Don't break your wrist." Well, there's a difference between a break in the wrist and a flex in the wrist, because there is a slight flex on the back cast and a slight flex forward as well, but it's not a break, because that flex moves the rod tip out of the way of your fly line. Otherwise, your fly line is going to collide with your rod tip, which I'm sure we've all done before.
So there's a difference there, right, between the flex and breaking the wrist. So I think that's an awesome tip. The thumb, for sure, that's something we haven't talked about specifically. I think that's a killer tip. We're doing a kind of a fly casting challenge coming up here. Actually, it's going to be close to when this goes live, so we'll have that going. But let's just give us, as we get out here, a couple of random ones for you, and then we'll jump out. First, I want to give a shout out to our Wet Fly Swing Pro community. Wetflyswing.com/pro is where we're doing some good stuff, and we're basically bringing the community together there. Brandon Farley, I want to give a shout out to Brandon. He's actually up in your neck of the woods. I'm not sure if he is aware of your operation, but he is this fanatical fly angler, right? And he's also got a connection to some of the military stuff as well. He does some stuff with Project Healing Waters and everything. So I want to give a big shout out to Brandon today. But give me, as we take this away, just a couple of tips. We're talking smallmouth bass. What are you telling somebody if they're coming on the water with you, to have success? Maybe a couple things.
Smallmouth bass, a couple of things about them that people should always keep in mind is, number one, there's always going to be an aggressive smallmouth bass, no matter what time of the year it is, always. And if you're out fishing for a bass and wondering, what do I throw, where do I throw it, whatever it is, just know that 90% of a smallmouth bass diet is crayfish. That is like what they're designed to eat, is crayfish. So if you're throwing crayfish, chances are you're going to have a high chance of catching one of those smallmouth. And for the guys that are smallmouth fanatics that love fishing them in topwater, oftentimes what I see is they do have a sensitive side to them, meaning that they will eat a whopper plopper off the surface. They'll eat a huge musky fly if they want to, but there are times in which they get really sensitive, and you've got to really go down to a size 6 hopper and throw a double taper floating line on a 13-foot leader, because they're getting really spooky. So, don't think just because they're a really hyper aggressive fish, they don't get sensitive. And then the last thing, we catch more 20-inch smallmouth bass out of a foot to a foot and a half water than probably anywhere else in the water column.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Those fish will get super shallow, and they will sit there like a rock and not move at all until a fly comes right in front of them, and then they dart out after.
I mean, it makes sense too, right? Because if fish is down in the deep, they could be eating crawfish and stuff. But the shallow water, it's easy for them to get all that topwater stuff, right? It's just less work.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
How similar are they to a muskie? Kind of waiting there, lie in wait, right? And then they attack.
They will attack anything, but typically speaking, what we find is the smallmouth are constantly roaming, constantly.
Oh, right.
Yep, constantly moving. They don't get in schools per se. They're kind of isolated. So when you're out fishing, just it's a lot of casting, and we're going to have people casting from the time they start to the time they finish. So if you're looking to really enhance your cast and really become a really good fly angler, go smallmouth fishing, because you're going to be working on shooting line, stripping line, roll casting, mending. You can be doing all the casts throughout the day. And the guides, if they're not getting you or working you up to that double haul, or to where you're casting 70 feet of line out, then that guide probably needs to be pushing that angler a little bit harder. But to answer your question more about that muskie comparison to smallmouth, they have some similarities, but overall they're almost nowhere close. That muskie is going to hang out beside that log for the most part of a day until something comes out in front of them. A smallmouth, they'll cruise. Yeah, they'll kind of cruise along like little Marines looking for something to attack.
That's such a good one. That we haven't even talked muskie, so maybe we might have to leave that for another one. But No, I think this is good. Well, like I said, a couple random ones here, and then we'll take you out of here. The Airstream, I'm always interested in the camper chat. How long have you had that Airstream? Why are Airstreams all, they look different than everything else? Are they everything that they look like? Are they pretty much the best camper out there?
Yes, they are. Number one, they are worth every single penny. They're incredible.
How are they different from, say, just any other normal camper? You name whatever you see them out there. How is the Airstream different? It looks like it's just like a bomber, super durable. Is that it, or how would you describe it?
That is correct. Yeah, it's the materials they're made out of are super durable, meaning it's not a vinyl side, it's actually aircraft aluminum.
Oh, right.
Yep. They're fairly lightweight. They have aluminum framework built into them, so they're very rigid. They have very little wood in it, so it doesn't rot,
So there's not much wood in those things.
like the cabinetry and stuff like that, but it's not a lot of wood, which is really beneficial in the long run. I mean, there's campers out.
That's a big thing because these things, I mean, basically it's campers are like moving homes right? So if it's a lot of wood, it's eventually going to come apart probably.
That's right. Yeah, the way that they do their coatings on the outside and the maintenance on it is pretty damn simple. You just kind of re-caulk it. But, if a walnut falls on a vinyl Coleman, it's going to put a hole through it. With the Airstream, you just get a little dent in it, big deal. From solar panels to, I have 2 AC systems in mine. I live in mine year round, full time.
Oh, you do?
I live in mine. Oh, yeah. Yep. It goes on bird hunting.
How big is this guy? How many feet?
Mine is a 30-footer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this is a big camper.
Yep, big camper. My daughter and I live in this thing. It's at the lodge. We park it at the lodge and we live out of it while the season's going crazy. And then during bird season, I pack that thing up and we chase birds all over the state.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yep, it's nice. I love it. Is it expensive? Yes. Is it worth the money? Yes. Is it the best one on the market? Yes, it is.
No, I've always thought of it because you see them out there and you're just like, man, they look so cool. Again, back to the Tesla. It looks different than everything else out there, right? I think that was the Tesla came up with their truck for, it's got all the stuff in it, right? It's got all the technical stuff, aerodynamics, but I think he wanted it to look as weird as different as possible, so it sticks out. And the Airstream does that too, right? Then the Airstream does that as well. You're about to buy another Airstream?
Yep. Oh yeah. I'll have it for another place for clients to sleep on or sleep at if they want to. If they want something more private, I'll park it on the riverbank and let clients just stay in that. Especially husbands, wives, couples that come in, they might want a little bit more privacy than the main house. Put them in the Airstream.
That was great. Awesome. Well, Wes, this has been great. As always on these great podcast episodes, it's hard to leave them because you got so much good stuff going. But I think we'll send everybody out to Wesley Hodges, flyfishing.com if they want to connect with you, have questions on any of these trips, which sound amazing. And hopefully, man, down the line, we'll be getting out with you too. Maybe we'll get a crew and follow up with you. But appreciate all your time today and all the wisdom, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. You guys take care. Thank you.
If you're fired up and excited to fish Virginia's wild rivers and get going here, the true cast and blast, if you want to get it dialed in, you can head over to wesleyhodgesflyfishing.com. If you're interested in this trip, if you want us to put this together, you can go to wetflyswing.com/pro, sign up there or send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com. And if I get enough interest, we will talk more on this. I'm feeling like this is going to happen. We haven't yet done the cast and blast. I think this might be a good springtime trip. So check in with me, check in with Wesley, let him know you heard this podcast. And that's all we have for you today. I just want to let you know we're also heading down very shortly to the White River. If you're interested in this trip, if you want to get involved, you can head over to wetflyswing.com/giveaway. You can also send me an email, dave@wetflyswing, like I said, and I'll let you know what's going on. We're fishing with CJ, CJ's Real Southern Podcast, our host down south there. It's going to be an epic trip. We've been talking a lot about it. So if you want to get involved in that, please let me know. And I just want to thank you for sticking in to the very end today. And hope you have a great morning, great afternoon, or an amazing evening wherever you are in the world. And I appreciate you for stopping in for an hour today. We'll talk to you on that next one.